So Kyros is an ed tech company based in Silicon Valley. We started in 2018 by former Googlers. We're headquartered in Palo Alto. We do have employees globally, worldwide. Our mission is to be the virtual counselor and the GPS system for high schooler students and the families on their journey to Dream College. Today, we have 5 panelists, and some of them already showed you the video. So like I said, they are amazing, but they are real, they are human too. Our first speaker will be Binzi. She's a senior student from Texas. She just got accepted by UCLA and Emory. I think she has picked UCLA as the dream school she's going. Then we have Clara. Clara is a senior student from Arizona. She got accepted to Emory, Duke, UPenn, and I think Clara is going to UPenn. So if any students wanted to go to these schools, feel free to reach out to our panelist. Ian Ian got accepted to Washington University, Emory, Colgate, and I don't know where Ian is going, but you may see his name and you might ask him the question later. We also have Joshua, who's a great pianist, and he's very shy. He did not give us the video, but he got accepted to Princeton, UPenn, UC Berkeley, and potentially MIT, I think. But for now, he might be going to Princeton. That's my guess. We have Caden. Caden has been with us probably for the longest. Caden is a freshman at UC Berkeley. She's majoring in business, but Caden has such an impressive resume. I think she started a company and has patents, and just amazing to talk to Kaden. So these are the speakers of today. You will get to know them much, much better as we go through their personal experience. How did they write captivating stories in their essays?
Hi everyone, I'm Binzi. So for my Common App essay, so firstly, because my intended major in college is math and statistics, so I kind of like want to put mathematical context into the essay. So in the first paragraph, I wrote how I view this word as a 2-dimensional figure, and every point and finger represents each person in the word. And then I talk about how the shape, like the triangle formed by me and my parents, or like the quadrilateral formed by me, my mom, and my grandparents, they all collapsed when I moved to US, because in that case, like I missed my family back in China. So then during that time, it was quite challenging and difficult. And the only thing I could do is like to play the Chinese instrument. It's called guzhong, and it's the one that you see in the video at the beginning of today's session. And during that time, my guzhong teacher actually encouraged me to perform in a nursing home. And then after I performed, and there were actually 2 seniors approaching to me, and they actually cried because they said they were deeply moved by my music. So then that was my first time realized that I could have the impact on others. And I realized that my life was never a 2-dimensional figure with only me, like my family, my friends, and my comfort zone. It was actually a 3-dimensional figure, and everyone in this world are all included in that figure. So then later I tried to step out and then just open myself to do more volunteering. And through this experience of having more connection with the public and having more interaction with the people in the outside those like in the museums or in libraries or in the nursing homes, I kind of feel like I become more confident and feel more integrated into this community. So then in the end, I see that now I view this world as a beautiful, expanding 3-dimensional figure. And then in the end, I just conclude that how I transformed from a timid girl to become a person that really can make some contribution to the society. Yeah, that was basically what I wrote in my essay.
Thank you very much for sharing with us, Binzi. So moving story, thank you. Let's go to Clara next.
Hi, so my college essay journey was definitely a journey, and I think I learned a lot about myself in writing my essays, both supplements and my Common App essay. And I had to do like 6 or 7 just complete rewrites of my Common Application essay. But one thing that I knew that I wanted to write about was jazz music. I don't play jazz music. I do love music, but I just love to listen to jazz. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with that, but I just knew that I wanted to write about jazz because I liked it and I wanted to have fun while writing my college essay. So as I began to kind of explore more of myself through working on supplements and working on the essay and writing and rewriting, my essay kind of turned into a metaphor for diversity and spontaneity, which I think are 2 aspects of jazz that throughout high school I've tried to embody within myself. So I talk about diversity, whether that be like helping marginalized communities in my area or across the world, or living with an exchange student for a year. So I was able to draw those experiences in and kind of connect it to that jazz metaphor, which is something that I love and was able to speak about with passion. And then spontaneity, how I always want to, look for new experiences and, be a little bit impulsive and in that way, and to not kind of be set back by personal biases. So I connected that to jazz and how beautiful the world is when we accept diversity and when we choose to be spontaneous. So that's what my main Common Application essay was about.
Thank you for sharing, Clara. Okay, let's hear from the young man. Ian, let's go to you next.
So in my essay experience, I would say I too probably had to rewrite mine a couple times. Because I talked to a bunch of different teachers at my school, all of whom teach English and writing, and they all said pretty different things. I heard a couple times, make sure you focus on what you can get out of school or what you can contribute to school. Some of them said, just focus on yourself and your interests. And so what I eventually decided to write about was really my main hobby, which is blacksmithing. And so I wrote about the first time I did blacksmithing and how pretty much it went terribly. I had to start over like 5 times, and I used that to show my determination and how even though you can fail multiple times, you can push through and succeed. And so I went back to all of those teachers I had asked to begin with, and I had each one of them read my essay, and I had them, I handed it to them and I said, critique this as much as you can. I want, all of the feedback you can think of, whether or not you think it applies to me. And so I took it back and I, rewrote it a whole bunch of times. And then the final time I came back and handed it back to them, and each one of them said, I think this really shows how, how much you can contribute to the school and how much, you have come to accept that, even though you may fail multiple times and you just have to keep pushing past it. And so even though I didn't write about an academic topic or a topic that a lot of people know about, I was able to come up with a really compelling story that showed off some of what I believe.
The floor.
All right, so hi everyone. As everyone else did, I revised my Common App several times. So I think I wrote 3 drafts just to get an idea down. And then after I had my idea down, I wrote several more drafts. And I had 5 to 6 different friends look it over. So these are friends that are in college now, and I had them help me out by giving comments. The topic for my essay, or my Common App essay, was research. So I did some research at a nearby university under the guidance of one of the professors there and with some graduate students. And I think that the most important thing to talk about in Common App essays is growth. You want to show like how you're growing and how you're changing throughout high school. And this way, it's also a good way to tell some really detailed stories about yourself. So when I wrote my research essay, I didn't really write about the specific research. I don't think I really mentioned any of the actual research or any scientific stuff that I did. I just talked about how I got to become more confident through research and how I began to start talking to people that are more experienced and not being as shy through research. And I think that this is a much more personal and I think it's a much more insightful essay because it's not focused on a single concrete topic, but it's focused on how I can grow as a person and how I can apply my skills to things outside of research. So for example, talking to others, learning from professors, etc. during college.
Mm-hmm. So that's a personal growth story. Very, very good. Thanks for sharing. So let's go to our college student, Caden, from UC Berkeley. I know, Caden, you had such a just amazing, very heartwarming essay. I want you to share with the audience. Caden, your turn.
Yeah, sounds good. So for my college essay, I wanted to show myself not only as someone with a lot of achievements, but someone who has empathy and compassion. So I wanted to kind of put my personality on the paper. And tying back to what Rebecca said in my introduction, I do have a patent, and it is a story of how something I learned contributed or made me take action and pretty much create and file for a patent. So my dad is relatively older, actually a lot older than the dad of my peers, because I have, a half brother that's a lot older than I am. So in order to, I guess, make me feel better about having a dad who's older, my dad weaved in a wig onto his head every single month for the first 10 years of my life. And I did not know that until one day in, I think, third grade, when his wig fell off. So at first I was really shocked. I thought it was a crow that fell from the sky. But after I found out kind of everything that he so selflessly did for me, I think that was a huge turning point in my life when I started considering what I can do for my parents rather than what they can do, what I can benefit from, or how they can serve me best. So my dad always struggled with high blood pressure, runs in the family. So that's pretty much how that whole story kind of influenced my patent idea, which is I created I put a spin on the traditional blood pressure monitor or a sphygmomanometer, and I kind of created that patent and it got granted. So I kind of tied my personal story and my personal growth journey to a call to action and also how I took action and was able to make that happen in the end. So I think it was a good, I guess, full circle story that showed different, like the most multifaceted parts of me as a person.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. So as you can see, all our panelists have taken a different angle, different approach, but it's not just about your achievements, also who you really are and your growth story, your struggle, your vulnerability, and tie that to the passion and who you want to become. So that's a really important element in writing your essay. Be genuine, be authentic, but show your conviction, show who you are. Let's move on to the next question. Now, essay is about who you say you are. You are presenting yourself to the admissions officer. But what's equally important is the third party who say you are. And that goes to letters of recommendations. How do you ask for a strong letter of recommendations? Who do you ask from? How do you ask? So with that, let's go back to Binzi, and I will ask Binzi to share with us on that. Second question, Binzi, your turn.
All right, yeah, so I asked for my US history teacher to write the letter for me. So, because actually humanity class is really challenging for me because they have lots of readings every week and my English just wasn't good that time. So, but like I always went to my teacher's room to ask questions, and especially after test, like I just went to the room and have a discussion with my teacher about the test. So I'm sure that my US history teacher knows me really well, and because I work hard in the class, and she knows that it's a really challenging class for me. So then I think the letter was really good. And just one advice I want to give is that you don't have to find a teacher in a subject that you are good at. Just make sure that your recommender knows you really well, and then you're doing something positive.
Yeah, so for my letter of recommendation writing strategy, they usually encourage you to choose. Some schools will require 2 letters, one, others 1. So I just decided to ask 2 teachers for my main letters of recommendation for my junior year, which is what they recommend. But that kind of stressed me out because there are so many other, influential mentors in my life, from coaches to people that have helped me on research, or other organizations I'm a part of, or other teachers that I had in my senior year that it might have been a little too late for them to write a formal letter of recommendation. So what I did was I asked each of those influential people in my life to write a paragraph or a letter to then send to my main recommenders. And so my teachers were able to quote these other people in my life who were influential. So I asked my math teacher and my humanities teacher to kind of give 2 different ends of the spectrum academically, but they were both able to cite from my community service work, or how I act like on a sports team or in music. So that was I think a good strategy to kind of show who I am well-rounded and to include all of those aspects of who I am. Also, I talked regularly with my teachers. Definitely I would give them cookies and cards to say thank you, so to keep me in their good graces while they were writing my letters. But also I filled out kind of a big form when I initially asked them about what I wanted to do in college and what I thought my strengths and weaknesses were. And I also included my favorite parts of their class. And also I was pretty explicit with the things that I thought would be good to include, because you will know the schools that you're applying to better than your teachers will. And so you'll know the types of, and you also know yourself better than your teachers do. So you might want to ask them to highlight specific aspects of yourself, which I think is totally acceptable. And it kind of gives your teachers a route to take when writing those letters. So the 2 main things I did were I asked a ton of influential people to include that well-rounded perspective. And I also helped my teachers kind of create a map for the letter.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So be prepared and give them a lot of details so they can write an impactful letter of recommendation. All right, let's see if the young men are as prepared as the girls here. So Ian, what did you do with your letters of recommendations?
Yes, so I asked 2 of my teachers for letters of recommendation. I asked my physics teacher and my AP seminar teacher. And I asked those 2 for a very specific reason, which is I've had both of them multiple times throughout high school. And so tying back to how Joshua said, it's important to show growth, I thought those 2 teachers more than anyone else would be able to, speak to that. And so I had my physics teacher once as a freshman and then once again as a senior when I was asking him. And so when I asked him to write my letters of recommendation, I made it pretty clear that, I reminded him that I loved his classes and that he has had me twice, which he already knew, but I wanted to make sure that he included that aspect of personal growth. And, I wanted him to be able to speak to my personality and how, most of the time in classes that I enjoy, I will be sure to speak up and raise my hand as often as possible and, be engaging. And that's something that a lot of teachers, really look for in students. And with my AP seminar teacher, not only have I had him multiple times, but when I had him the second time, me and him had, our I guess kind of tradition where I don't really remember how it started, but at the beginning of class, we would, kind of loudly announce to the class how we were both doing. And, it was just a funny way to start the class and, get to know each other. And so because of that, I got to know him probably better than any of the other teachers at my school. And so I was, more than comfortable that he would be able to speak to, how engaging I am and my personality as a whole.
Right, great tips. Thanks for sharing. Let's hear from Joshua.
All right, so I asked for 2 letters of recommendation, one from my English teacher and one from my math teacher for calc. I asked them quite early, so I emailed them the April before college app started. So I think it's important to ask early just in case your teachers have some kind of limit. So I know some teachers in our school have a limit on how many recommendation letters that they will write. And if you apply too late, they may just say, sorry, no can do. Any case, I chose these two. I chose these 2 teachers mainly because first of all, I'm a very STEM focused person. I'm very focused in math and physics, and I thought that having a math teacher or a math teacher write my letter could attest to some of this. The math teacher in question that I asked actually has a policy where you're allowed to submit your own document. Where you're allowed to submit a document that's describing yourself. It can be an essay. And I thought this was really important because I can use this to show like all my accomplishments that maybe she doesn't really know about and that she can incorporate into her own letter. And in addition, the reason why I chose my English teacher, I thought was something special because English has actually been my worst class all throughout high school. So I got the lowest grade in that class. But in that class, I started off first quarter with a B, and then over time, by 4th quarter, I managed to pull it up to an A, and I ended the final year with an A- average. And I thought this growth is more important than having another letter that's saying that I'm good at science or good at math. So this way, I can show the colleges again that I'm growing, I'm learning, and that I can take school seriously and improve by reaching out to the teacher through various emails when necessary.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it sounds pretty bold, but I think it makes a lot of sense as you explain it. It's just a different aspect of you that allow the teacher to demonstrate through the letters of recommendations. Let's hear from Caden. Again, Caden from UC Berkeley for folks who join later. Caden, why don't you share with us how you approach that letter of recommendations?
Yeah, gladly. So I think I also took a pretty unconventional route in asking or in picking my 2 letters of recommendation. I asked from a freshman teacher and from my Spanish teacher. So both of them were kind of out of the norm in that they weren't teachers for the subjects that I personally wanted to pursue in high school. I guess I want to kind of highlight my freshman teacher and why I took that risk. So most colleges do want you to submit or pick a teacher from your junior or senior year. And because I picked a freshman year teacher, he actually had to call a lot of the colleges personally and talk to them about why that decision was made and make sure that that was okay. So keep in mind that if you want to deviate from the norm in that way, you might have to take extra steps to make sure that your letter of recommendation is fully considered. So why I picked him was that he was, I guess, more than a teacher to me. He was a mentor throughout my whole high school experience, and I felt that he knew me and me as a person, me outside of the classroom, and my personal growth over the 4 years better than any other teacher could ever tell in any one class. So because I was in the IB program at our school, we kind of have year-long projects that we have to undertake with a supervisor. And he picked me as his supervising student. So outside of my freshman year class, he helped me with that during sophomore year. And he also helped me in starting my organization outside of school. So he kind of supported me through everything. He knew my character, which is something I really wanted to express through my letters of recommendation because, I thought that my transcript was a pretty good depiction of what kind of student I am in class. but he could talk to the aspects of me that no other teacher could. So that's why I picked him. And I guess just a short blurb on why I picked my Spanish teacher. Spanish was also not one of my strongest subjects, but I think it's one where I'm put in a very foreign and challenging environment, and everyone else in the class is, and just to be able, for my teacher to be able to talk about how I approach that challenge, in relation to other students, I thought that was valuable to me and to show how I am as a student. So that's why I went with my Spanish teacher.
Yeah, great. Thanks for all our panelists for sharing. So as our audience can see, letters of recommendations are very, very, very important. But you have to begin the prep work much, much early on. Don't wait till the last minute. Now, the next question is pretty big. I know this is not an easy question, but we are asking our panelists to share if there are any events, mentors, any summer programs that triggered a turning point in high school, right? And sometimes when the parents are too eager, they push too hard, it could backfire. Our teenagers may or may not want to heed your advice. But sometimes when they're in the right environment, when they're exposed to the events and mentors that actually elicit the potential out of them, allow them to discover their true passion, and they can grow. And as parents, you can just sit and chill and cheer for them. So we want our panelists to talk about some of the events and mentors had those influences on them. So with that, we'll go back to Binzi to share with us. Binzi, back to you again.
Yeah, all right. So during the summer after the sophomore year, I went to Brown University to participate in a program to learn the statistical programming language in R. And this skill actually gave me many opportunities. Like in my junior year, I have an opportunity to join with a team doing the bioinformatics research, and the team, it was happy to have me because I have the skill of R. So I can help with the team to produce graphs and generate the data. And then it was lucky that we can publish the paper. And then also in my senior year, I participate in a data competition. And also I utilized my skill of R. And then in the end, we got the first place. So then my advice is just like, probably you need to reach out to more opportunities. And it's good to have a skill, especially you want to work in the field of technology. Especially so, I think it's really good that if you can have some sort of coding knowledge, especially Python or like Java, it will really help you in your future career pathway.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much, Binzi. Clara, you had a great story. I want everybody to hear it.
Yeah, so in about my sophomore year, I had a huge personal crisis that I didn't know who I was or what I was doing with myself. I was worried that I felt like I'd never experienced failure and that I was just in all of these clubs that I didn't care about. And my freshman year, I just decided to immerse myself in everything to see what I wanted to do. And it was about at that time that a friend I had made in an extracurricular club that I was doing said, hey, you should start a chapter of this organization I'm a part of at your school. And at that stage in my life, I was kind of saying yes and okay to everything because I was always looking for opportunities and experiences. So I was like, sure, I'll start a chapter of this at my school. So I ended up starting a chapter of the NGO Girl Up, which is a United Nations foundation at my school. And as I began working for them, I was the president of this club. I learned about the types of problems that women face around the world. It's specifically targeted for adolescents in underdeveloped areas that don't receive as many resources. That became something that bothered me and something that I wanted to fix. So I became more involved in Girl Up, and I joined the Arizona Executive and Presiding Board that takes care of the Girl Up affairs in the state of Arizona and works closely with the United Nations. And so I did that in my sophomore year. And then in my junior year, I actually became then the president of Girl Up in Arizona. And I really kind of found that that was my passion, and that I kind of identified myself as a feminist, and that really kind of began to take over who I was and really guide a lot of my interests. So once I realized that passion, I knew I wanted to continue that and kind of develop that narrative, just because it was, personally good for me, and then also, to benefit my college applications. So I reached out to professors of like women's studies and immigration studies at Arizona State University, which is nearby to where I live. And I started doing research with a professor there. It wasn't directly related to women and gender, but it was about immigration in Arizona, which is interesting as a border state. So I learned a lot there and kind of began to develop that passion for learning about people and advocacy, and specifically then related to women and empowering women in that way. And that became something that I'm so passionate about now, and that I want to continue to do as a career and in my future. And that basically all just happened from saying yes to a random opportunity. And that's one of my favorite aspects of high school and about who I am now.
Yeah, thanks, Clara, for sharing. It's not easy to be a high schooler and looking for identity and understand who you really are. So these events do trigger a lot of the transformation to follow. Ian, tell us about Costa Rica. What happened in Costa Rica on that trip?
Yes, so I think around sophomore year over the summer, I was really just looking for things to do. And I've had the good fortune of having two parents who, because of their jobs, get to travel a lot. And so they proposed the idea that I go on a service trip to Costa Rica, where, a large part of the country is, pretty impoverished and does not have a lot of resources. And so for like 2 weeks, I went on a trip to Costa Rica, and I helped not only build, community centers, but also teach English to, a lot of the rural villages. And through that trip, I really found a love for, community service, but also the importance of understanding other people's perspectives. Because in high school, it's really easy, especially if you're in, a more wealthy area, or a more, homogenous area where everyone kind of speaks like you and looks like you. And it's really easy to only consider your perspective. And so getting to go to a country, and really not just the country, but the area of the country where I was, where people so clearly have just a different way of life entirely, and they have to do just so much more to provide for their family and to just fend for themselves on a daily basis. And so after coming back from that trip, I signed up for a bunch more community service events where I was able to help out people in my community and at my school. And I found that just incredibly helpful, because especially going through the college process, I think it's incredibly important to show that you understand that other people are going to be coming from different backgrounds than you are.
Right, so again, as I mentioned before, research was definitely a turning point in my high school career. It gave me something to do instead of just like going home after school every day. So instead of going home, I would instead go to the lab, and I would spend a few hours there. And this would definitely help with my mental state, as well as give me something to do. And it also ended up giving me some exciting stuff to learn about. So I managed to get myself to read a few papers. I managed to get myself to address all these different issues. I managed to get myself to talk to more experienced and higher level people than before. And I think that this was a really great experience for me and helped me with all my essays.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Kaden, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because I know we're running out of time, but a mentor for me was definitely my manager at one of the internships I got in my sophomore year. Um, and I'm just going to say that he took a very shy girl and pretty much empowered me to become the person that I am, who's pursuing business. And also, he trained me in a lot of public speaking skills and helped me co-found my nonprofit. So I would say that when you're looking for an internship, don't just do the work and, very just like obey your manager, but definitely try to have a personal relationship with them because you never know what kind of mentor they could be to you or what kind of impact they could have in your life, outside or after the internship.